what would you say are some of the differences between Black American culture and your experience as an African man living through Europe and the Middle East and stuff?
Wow. I think that's a tricky one because I think a lot of what is the way Black Americans or even Black American culture is portrayed through the media, whether that's modern day TV or music and so on, I don't think it's an accurate representation of the typical actual Black American person.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are certain stereotypes and ways of making Black men and Black women come across, which, yes, there are people who are like that, but they're not really sharing the whole picture. They're not showing the, normal, they're not showing the average family oriented person who's just, going to work and not being a degenerate in any type of way. And I think a lot of the degeneracy gets promoted and pushed, and that's not unique to Black people. It is across the spectrum, but I think that through various mechanisms, there are certain portrayals of Black Americans in particular, which get pushed through the media, not just here in the USA, by the way, but internationally. And it sort of fortifies certain stereotypes, which I think oftentimes are not, number one, are not accurate. I think it's an imbalanced representation, but also not exactly wholesome or positive. And I think there's, over the past few decades, it seems like there's been a move, intentionally or not, or maybe both, to reinforce certain negative stereotypes. And I know that most Americans don't leave the USA and don't travel, and perhaps do not see how those images and views get ingrained around the world.
Right. Like African Blacks are different than American Blacks. Mm-hmm. My parents are Caribbean. We're mixed.
Yeah.
But Jamaicans, Haitians, Caribbean Black people are different in many ways, values and culture. I dare I say they take themselves more seriously than American Blacks. How much would you say rap music has impacted American Black culture, and of course, the world, because we export our media in a positive way, but then also in a negative way?
It's hard, man. It's a complicated question, because I'm very aware that we're talking about tens and in some instances hundreds of millions of people. So, I mean, there's about 40 million or so Black Americans in the USA. That's a nation's worth of people, a pretty large nation's worth of people. So I'm somewhat hesitant to, I'm very much an individualist on many levels. So I don't like to make broad statements of like, oh, okay, Black Americans are like this, or this is the conception around them, because it's too big a group, and with so much diversity and different types of people in it, that just like I wouldn't do the same with Asian Americans or white Americans or Jewish Americans. It's such a big group. But I think that in terms of rap culture, it's simultaneously a reflection and also something that does shape culture and perception. So it's both. It's kind of this chicken and the egg thing, right? Does art influence life? Does life influence art? And I think it's both. It's both, right? If you look at hip hop, whether you're looking at, gangster rap and the stuff that's more in that vein, or if you're looking at stuff that's just more, even what people might have called conscious hip hop, or stuff that's more political. You talked about Public Enemy and so on. It's simultaneously a reflection. There's a level of narrative and reporting to it of like, look, this is what's going on in the street. This is what's happening in the community. This is what's going on in Brooklyn. This is what's happening in LA. This is what's happening down south in Texas or whatever. So there's some element which is a reflection of the way those individuals and people in those communities have grown up and the things that they've experienced and been through. But then there's also the power of hip hop to shape culture. One of the most powerful things about hip hop and rap music is it's one of the things that is globally around the world, it's considered pretty much the epitome of cool. Right? Rap and hip hop can make stuff cool. Rappers are considered cool. They're considered ahead of the game. Young people especially gravitate towards anything that they consider cool. And with that, it does have a lot of powerful influence, which can be either positive or negative. Because I think something incredibly important, if you think about different cultures, is what does a culture or a community consider cool? And I think that whatever is considered cool, you're going to get more young people emulating that. So if you look at a community where the cool thing is to have a family and to be well educated and to be a law-abiding citizen and to be responsible and so on, if that's what's considered cool and aspirational, naturally you're going to get more young people emulating that and gravitating towards it. If on the flip side you took a community and the things that are considered cool are doing drugs or selling drugs or having a criminal record, or going to prison is considered cooler than going to university, or having 5 children from 5 different women is considered cooler than having 5 children from one woman, and so on, then you're going to get more people emulating that behavior. Again, especially young people who are most likely to be influenced. So I know that there are millions and millions of people who fall into different categories on this, on all sides of the spectrum and across different races and ethnicities and nationalities and so on. But I think the real power of hip hop, beyond the messaging, is its ability to shape and influence what is considered cool. And I think anyone who's a fan of hip hop actually knows how influential it can be, right? If you're a teenager and you're a rap fan, it's going to influence the way you dress, maybe the way you speak, the slang that you're using. It doesn't mean that you're going to go and imitate and mimic every single thing that you're hearing a rapper say on record. But I would absolutely be lying if I said that hip hop didn't have, of course hip hop had a massive influence on me.
Would you say that American culture, Americans in general, would be more virtuous with or without rap?
Wow. I honestly do not know.
And I don't just say rap, but I'm talking, most pop music most
in general.
Cool music.
This is the thing, because it does reflect society. This music is not coming out of nowhere. And people are generally choosing what they listen to. People choose what they can consume, right?
Is that so? I mean,
I do think so. I
grew up in a time where we listened to whatever was on the radio. Mm-hmm. And so we were kind of molded to believe what was cool based on what they would pump into our brains.
That's true. And I think that is more true of the past than now. Mm-hmm. I think that now most people are very much choosing what they listen to, whether it's on Spotify or it's on Apple Music or iTunes. People are very much curating their own playlists. They're searching for what they want. They're seeking out. It's not just the radio and the nightclubs pushing stuff on you. So I think there's a responsibility on all sides of it, right? I think it's interesting. I get asked as a rapper, I get a lot of people asking me things like, do you think rappers are a positive or a negative role models? Or do you think that, why do rappers make music with so much profanity, or why do they rap about these topics and so on? And I think those are interesting questions. I think a more interesting question is, why do so many people like it? Right? A lot of it is consumer driven.
If I would interject there with why most people like it, I think it's because of our fallen nature. There's a propensity towards sin. So anything that's sensual, sexy, that gives me a sense of liberation, makes me feel pride, will always sink to that lowest tier. Yeah. That's in our nature.
I agree with you. And I think it's interesting to recognize it, because it makes us turn that focus back inwards, right? As critical as I can be of certain rappers and their lyrics and the messaging they're putting out there and so on, I would be a hypocrite if I said, oh, I don't listen to any gangster rap, or I don't listen to any degenerate.
It makes you feel powerful. I grew up listening to Biggie and Tupac and Nas, like you said before, some of the older stuff. But it gives you this sense of pride. Yes. That's the main thing. I remember listening to rap music, especially if I want to get pumped up for a football game or something. It makes me feel powerful.
It's powerful
to listen to this music.
And I think how you channel that is I think it's extraordinarily important. I think that can be channeled in a very negative way. It can also be channeled in a very positive way. So I know for myself, I find when I'm listening to even some of these same artists, the message I'm getting from it or what I'm taking away from it is when it filters through my lens, it's primarily positive, right? Because number one, I'm from a very solid family, thank God, and I was raised well with certain decency and morals. There's no movie, there's no song, there's no video game that's gonna make me go out there and do something heinous or like I don't even cuss, right? Like I can listen to cussing all day. It won't even make me mimic it.
You mentioned a blessing that you have, which you came from a solid family.
Yes.
Would you say that rap music has fostered an environment in our culture where it has been detrimental to the family?
I'll be honest. I think if so, I think it's very much pales in comparison to many other factors out there. I think that it's, look, I recognize that music has the power to alter people's emotions and feelings and to motivate and inspire people in different ways. I'm an artist who makes music that's focused on positivity and uplifting people and trying to inspire and motivate people and put certain messages out there. And I know for a fact that that has an effect on people. I've met people, I've had people tell me that song of yours or, that thing you've said, that performance you did, it had this effect on me in a positive way. So logically, if it's possible for music to impact people in a positive way, obviously it can impact people in a negative way. I'd be being dishonest if I said, oh, no, that's not possible. Something like the breakdown of family, fatherlessness and so on, divorce rates, all these other things that have been, honestly, I think is probably the biggest problem in this entire country. Do I think that rap music is even in the top 5, top 10 causes of that or sources? No, not at all. I don't think so. But could it possibly have some detrimental effect, especially on younger people if they're not raised well? Yeah, possibly. And it depends on the artist as well, because even if we're saying rap and hip hop, I think we're talking about a specific part of it.
Pop culture.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's rap, but it's all the music, punk rock music, all this music that, in my opinion, is degenerate and derogatory and destroys us from the inside out. It's a cultural war when it really boils down to it. People are going to make choices on who they vote for and what they choose to do, but it's really been an attack on our soul. And you can't argue. I mean, even the word music comes from musing, right? Like, so speaking into the soul, hearing from, it's spiritual.